I remember the nurse's face when she asked if I wanted to wait in the consultation room for the results. I told her no. I checked the portal at home. I just finished my 6th round of chemo. The kind that burns your veins and takes your hair and leaves your bones hollow. That part didn't scare me. What scared me was the phrase sitting in black and white on the screen. Inconclusive paternity. I stared at it, refreshed the page, opened the full report. Same thing. Based on comparative sequencing, I am not the biological father of my son. Leo is 14. Reserved, bookish, introverted to a fault. I've loved him since the second he opened his eyes in that hospital room and wrapped his tiny fingers around mine. I coached his soccer games, taught him to throw a punch, bought him his first bike. I was there for every flu, every birthday, every night terror. But apparently, I wasn't there for the part that mattered most. I didn't confront Caroline that night. She came home with Thai takeout, said traffic was awful, kissed my cheek like nothing had changed. I told her I was tired. She nodded. That was the extent of our exchange. I waited until the house was quiet. Then I went to the garage, opened the safe behind the fuse box, and pulled out the flash drive I hadn't touched since my last deployment. It held scans of everything: marriage license, tax returns, property records, message backups. A precaution I never expected to need. But I've learned over the years that safety isn't a matter of optimism. It's a matter of preparation. I started digging. Caroline's emails, her cloud accounts, her old phone backups. Most of it was benign. Family photos, appointment reminders, grocery lists, until I found his name. Elias Monroe. Former colleague, visiting professor, Cambridge trained, neck deep in theoretical physics and smug smiles. He and Caroline had reconnected 15 years ago at a symposium in Boston, months before Leo was born. She said it was professional, nothing serious, and yet she named him Leo's godfather. I never liked the choice, never liked the man. He'd held my son once in the hospital, took a photo, sent a card, and disappeared. But Caroline insisted it was symbolic. It was. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. Hidden bank accounts, wire transfers, a private email server she thought I didn't know about, conversations about when the time is right. Apparently, the time was supposed to come after I died. That was her plan. But here's the thing. I'm not dead, and she mistook survival for silence. I booked a private consult with a geneticist the next morning. No aliases, no lies. I wanted the truth to be documented. I gave them the report. Asked if it could be wrong. Couldn't. Probability of error virtually zero. The doctor asked if I'd like to bring in my wife for a follow-up. I said that wouldn't be necessary. Instead, I drove to a parking lot 4 miles from home and waited in my truck for a man named Lee Dobbins. Former MP, now private surveillance. We'd served together once, briefly, in Ramadi. He was the kind of man who noticed too much and said too little. The kind of man you pay when you want to know everything and don't want your name attached. We shook hands. I gave him Caroline's routine, license plate, workplace, favorite lunch spots. I didn't ask for footage. Just logs, timestamps, confirmations. I wanted to see where the days went when she said she was working late. I needed a map of her lies. That afternoon, I started phase 2. I opened a trust in Leo's name. Not because he's mine biologically, but because I raised him. I taught him to ride a bike and change a tire. I sat through school plays and stitched his leg up after that fall in the woods. Blood or not, that boy is my son. But Caroline will never get near that money. I transferred ownership of our savings into that trust under my legal right as primary account holder. Froze the joint accounts with a pending audit request. Then I ordered new passwords, reissued debit cards, and rerouted our mortgage to a secured corporate entity I'd set up years ago for contracting work. Caroline didn't notice. Not yet. That night we had dinner like normal. She poured wine, asked about my appetite, told me Leo had aced his geometry quiz. She was in a good mood, lighter than usual. Probably because she thought she was halfway to a clean escape. She doesn't realize I know about the account in Cambridge. Doesn't know I've seen her messages to Elias. Doesn't know I have copies. She laughed during dinner, touched my hand. Told me she was proud of how strong I'd been through the treatments. I smiled back. Told her I was grateful she stuck by me. It wasn't a lie. I was grateful. Grateful for the time to prepare. At 2:47 a.m., I woke up from a coughing fit. Went downstairs, made tea. Opened my laptop. Lee had sent his first report. Thursday, 12:32 p.m. Caroline left the office. Didn't return for 3 hours. Stopped at a hotel on Ridgeway. Elias Monroe checked in earlier that day. Different name. Same face. Friday, 5:14 p.m. She claimed traffic. Arrived home at 6:52 p.m. In reality, she left work at 4:05 p.m. Drove to the same location. Same pattern on Monday. Same pattern on Wednesday. There was no doubt now. It wasn't just the past. It was happening. Still, while I sat across the table, while I slept beside her, while I fought for my life, I closed the report, drank my tea, watched the sun come up, and I made a decision. I wouldn't just confront her. I would erase every part of the exit plan she thought was bulletproof. I would let her walk into the fire she built, and I'd be the one holding the match. Friday morning, Caroline forgot her keycard. She called me from the office parking lot, asked if I could drop it off. Her voice was casual, affectionate. She even called me babe, like we were still in some kind of honeymoon haze. I said sure. When I pulled into her office lot, I stayed in the truck for 20 minutes. Watched, took note of who she spoke to, how she moved, how relaxed she looked. There's a kind of calm that only comes from believing you've gotten away with something. I handed her the card with a smile. She kissed my cheek. Told me she was thinking of planning a small trip for us once I finished treatment. Something quiet, for just us. I asked her when she last talked to Elias. She blinked. Not since the conference last year. I nodded. Didn't challenge it. A liar's comfort is in unchallenged airspace. That evening I rechecked the financials. She hadn't noticed the frozen accounts yet. She rarely looked at anything but her own card history. But by Monday she'd know. I made sure of it. I set up a call with our insurance provider, logged the meeting on our shared calendar so she'd see it. I changed the beneficiary from spouse to minor dependent. I started shifting ownership of certain assets into the trust. The car title, the savings bonds from my uncle, the land my grandfather left me upstate. All legal, all documented, all irreversible. On Sunday, Leo and I went shooting. He's still too thin in the shoulders, but his posture's improving. When we stopped for gas, he asked if I was okay. You've been different, he said. I told him I was just tired, that I'd be fine. He looked at me for a long second, then nodded. That kid's got intuition. He gets that from me. That night, Caroline came into the bedroom in her robe and sat on the edge of the bed. I was thinking, she said, maybe we should go see someone, a therapist, after everything we've been through. I almost laughed. The irony of her offering therapy the same week she was sneaking out of hotels and lying about her lover. Instead, I nodded. Let's book it. She kissed my forehead and whispered, we'll get through this. When she turned off the light and lay beside me, I stared at the ceiling. She still believed she had control. But control isn't about words. It's about preparation. And Caroline has no idea how long I've been preparing. Monday morning, Caroline found the first block. She called me at work, 2 hours earlier than usual. Her voice was tight, polite. There's something wrong with the joint account, she said. It's not letting me transfer funds to my checking. I told her I'd look into it. I didn't. She texted an hour later. Did you freeze it? I waited 10 minutes, then replied, must be a banking issue. I'll follow up tomorrow. That bought me time. She was rattled. She canceled a meeting that afternoon, drove straight home. I watched her through the front security cam from my phone. She stood in the kitchen, pacing with her phone clutched in both hands. She wasn't used to being out of control. It didn't suit her. That night she was cold, distant, asked what was going on, but didn't push. I told her the bank had flagged some suspicious transfers and locked the account as a precaution. Her eyes flinched just slightly. I'd built that lie around a truth, because I had reported suspicious transfers. Just not the ones she thought. Wednesday, the lawyer called. Trust account fully secured. Executor appointed. If anything happened to me, Leo would be protected. Caroline wouldn't see $1. That same evening, Lee sent me something new. Elias wasn't just visiting. He owned a townhouse in Beacon Hill. Caroline had stayed there twice in the last 3 months. On one trip, she used her work conference as cover. The location was marked as Weston Inn in her calendar. I zoomed in on the surveillance photo. There was no inn. Just a red brick building with black shutters and a private entry code. I saved the photo to a folder I'd labeled pending confrontation. It was time to change the tempo. On Friday, I told Caroline I was taking Leo camping next weekend. Just us. She smiled like she believed it, told me it sounded perfect. On Sunday, I dropped into her office unannounced. Brought coffee. Said I had an appointment nearby. She smiled for the assistant, kissed my cheek, pretended nothing was wrong. Her eyes were cool, testing me. When I left, I walked around the block and called Lee. Next 72 hours, I said. I want every step logged, everywhere she goes. No problem, he said. She was slipping. The performance was cracking. Her answers were rehearsed but not precise. The casual lies took longer to come. Her timing was off. Her stories conflicted. And still, she had no idea I had the whole script. The only thing she didn't know was when the curtain would drop. But it's coming. And I won't be the one on stage when it does. By Tuesday, Caroline stopped pretending. She came into the kitchen with her laptop and a neutral face. I talked to the bank today, she said. They said the freeze wasn't initiated by fraud detection. It was client requested. I kept stirring the eggs. That's so? She set the laptop down. Why would you do that? I shrugged. Felt like we needed a reset. Too many unexplained debits. Better safe than sorry. That's not your call, she snapped. I turned off the burner, set the pan aside, and finally looked at her. Neither was lying for 14 years. She didn't flinch. I'll give her that. She's always had strong nerves when cornered. But her mouth opened slightly, as if to deflect, deny, redirect. I didn't give her the chance. I pulled the envelope from my drawer, set it beside her laptop. Inside, 3 photographs, 5 transaction records, and a printed page from the geneticist's report. She didn't touch it. What is this? She asked, though she already knew. Proof, I said. Not accusations. Not assumptions. Proof. Her fingers trembled when she finally opened it. She scanned the report, froze on the word inconclusive. Her throat worked hard to swallow. Then she turned to the photos, one of her with Elias outside the townhouse. One entering, one leaving for hours later in a different outfit. She didn't speak for a long time. When she finally did, her voice was small. How long have you known? Long enough to see what you are when you think no one's watching. She slid into the kitchen chair, suddenly deflated. The mask fell. No more tight smiles. No soft tones. Just exhaustion. Or maybe calculation. You're not telling Leo, she said, like it was a given. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I asked, does Elias know? She looked up sharply. I nodded. That's what I thought. You kept it from both of us. And you were going to walk away clean. It wasn't like that, she said. It never is. She exhaled. Slow. Careful. What do you want, Mark? I looked her dead in the eye. I want you to realize this isn't your story anymore. It's mine now. Then I stood up, left the kitchen, closed the door behind me. In war, there's a moment before the first shot where everything goes still. Breath slows. Vision narrows. You feel the weight of what's coming, and you don't blink. That's where she is now. Stillness. Because she knows the first shot has already been fired. Caroline didn't speak to me for 2 days. Not a word. Not over breakfast. Not about Leo. Not about logistics or finances or anything that might signal normalcy. That silence told me everything. She wasn't processing. She was recalibrating. On the third morning, I noticed her phone calls start getting longer. Her texts more frequent. I checked the router logs. Her laptop had connected to a VPN 3 separate times in one evening. She was covering her tracks now. Encrypting. Downloading. Transferring. That was fine. I'd already cloned her drive 2 weeks ago. Leo had a field trip on Thursday. She volunteered to chaperone, which was unusual. Caroline doesn't do buses or field lunches. But this time she went. Smiling. Warm. Reasserting control of the narrative. I let her. Control is easier to dismantle when someone thinks they still have it. That afternoon I met with my attorney. We went over every clause in the will. Every detail in the living trust. My power of attorney. Custody contingencies. Medical directives. Caroline wasn't listed anywhere. The lawyer asked if I was expecting a fight. No, I said. She's expecting a fight. I'm giving her a verdict. That night she brought me tea. Said nothing about the documents. Just placed the mug gently beside me and sat across the room on her laptop. We looked like a couple in quiet routine. But this was the calm before an engineered collapse. The next morning I changed the house deed. Years ago, I'd purchased it solely in my name, but later added hers for tax purposes. I filed paperwork to rescind the joint designation due to fraudulent concealment during the purchase period. A legal clause my lawyer helped identify. It was obscure but legitimate. It went through. She wouldn't know. Not yet. Not until the letter arrived. When it did, she'd understand. The roof over her head now belonged to someone she tried to deceive into dying quietly. She spent the weekend reorganizing closets, packing small boxes, saying they were early spring cleaning. She was preparing for departure. But this wasn't an exit. It was an eviction, and she just hadn't read the notice yet. The letter arrived Thursday afternoon. Certified mail. I watched from the upstairs window as Caroline took it from the mailbox. She opened it in the kitchen, expecting a routine update from her office or insurance provider. Instead, she found her name formally removed from the house deed. She stood there for almost 5 minutes, reading and rereading the language. Due to evidence of material deception during the property agreement. Her face changed. Not shocked, she was too strategic for that, but pale, tight around the eyes. She dropped the letter on the counter, walked out the back door, and sat on the porch steps. No phone, no dramatic confrontation, just stillness. That night, she didn't come to bed. I found her on the guest room mattress, lights off, door ajar. She was lying flat, eyes open, staring at the ceiling like she was calculating angles. I didn't speak. I just closed the door. The next day, I sent Leo to stay with my sister for the weekend. Told him I needed a few days to recover from treatments. He didn't question it. I used the time to reset all the security codes on the house. Alarm, garage, office. I installed new locks, the kind that don't come with spare keys. Caroline saw me drilling them in. She didn't ask why. She didn't say a word. But I knew she was counting steps, trying to anticipate where the floor would crack next. On Sunday morning, she broke the silence. "You've made your point," she said, standing in the doorway while I cleaned my rifle. "You win." I didn't stop cleaning. "This isn't about winning," I said. "Then what is it?" "It's about clarity." She crossed her arms. "And what happens now? We pretend for Leo? Go to court? Split everything?" I looked up at her calmly. "There's nothing to split." Her expression twitched. I continued. "Your accounts are frozen pending the fraud investigation. The townhouse in Boston, it's registered under a shell alias uses for donor contributions. IRS is already involved. The funds you moved? Flagged for forensic review. The story you've been writing about your clean exit, your fresh start, it's over." Her voice dropped half an octave. "You wouldn't do that to Leo." "I didn't," I said. "You did. 14 years ago. When you decided I was a better caretaker than a man worth the truth." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I wiped down the barrel, snapped the case shut, walked past her without another word. She was starting to understand. This wasn't retribution. This was reckoning. By Monday, Elias Monroe was suspended from his university post. It wasn't me who reported him. It was a parent from his department who'd seen the leaked surveillance photo. Caroline entering his townhouse, time-stamped during a supposed university ethics board meeting. The internet works fast when someone's name trends for the wrong reasons. I watched it unfold from my office. Headline: Prominent Cambridge researcher under scrutiny for financial misconduct and inappropriate conduct. Comments were brutal. Anonymous sources. Conjecture. Speculation. But some things didn't need confirmation. Caroline saw the news too. She didn't leave the house that day. She stayed in her office, phone pressed to her ear, pacing in tight circles. I recognized the voice even through the drywall. Elias. Panicked. Demanding. At one point she snapped, "You said this was clean." I almost laughed. That night, she approached me with something like desperation in her voice. "Leo can't find out. No matter what happens, he can't know." I stared at her. "You're not worried about Leo. You're worried about losing the only person who still believes you're human." She swallowed, looked away. "I raised him," I said. "Not out of obligation. Not out of charity. I raised him because I loved him, and I still do. But he will know the truth." "Why? What does it serve?" "Dignity," I said. "His, not yours." She started to cry then. The real kind. Not the rehearsed tears from before. This was grief. The dawning realization that her version of life had ended and nothing was left to salvage. But it didn't move me. The following day, my attorney filed a restraining order on asset access, backed by 3 years of financial concealment evidence and a sworn affidavit from our former accountant, who Caroline thought would stay loyal. It went through in under 48 hours. The trust remained untouched. The house mine. Leo's future secured. Her future undefined. Friday evening, Caroline packed 3 bags. She didn't say goodbye. Just walked to her car, started the engine, and sat there for a long time. Then she drove away. No dramatic farewell. No final word. Just silence. And that, finally, felt honest. Caroline was gone. No letter. No calls. No emails. Just an open drawer in the guest room and a half-finished cup of coffee on the counter that stayed untouched for 3 days before I dumped it myself. Leo came home Sunday night. He didn't ask why the locks had changed. Didn't ask why her car wasn't in the driveway. He just looked around, took in the rearranged furniture, the new deadbolt, and the tightness in my jaw, and didn't say a word. We had dinner in silence. Halfway through, he put down his fork. "Are you and Mom getting divorced?" I nodded once. He didn't react. Just wiped his mouth and asked if he could be excused. Later, I knocked on his door. Found him lying on the bed, headphones off, staring at the ceiling. "She's not coming back, is she?" he asked. "No," I said. "Is it because of the cancer?" "No," I said again, softer. "It's because of the truth." He didn't look at me, but his voice was steady. "I heard things. Weeks ago. Late at night. You yelling into the phone. Saying her name. Saying you knew." I sat down beside him. "I didn't want you in the middle of this." "I already was," he said. "I just didn't understand why." Now he did. I left out the DNA. That conversation would come later. When the time was right. When he was ready to hear that biology isn't what makes you someone's father. For now, he needed space to process the fracture in his world. One parent gone. The other different. Not broken, but changed. Monday morning, I drove him to school. He didn't say much. But when he got out of the car, he paused. "Thanks," he said. "For what?" "For not lying." Then he shut the door and walked inside. I sat there for a while, engine running, headlights still on in the daylight. The hardest part of war isn't the planning, or even the strike. It's the quiet afterward, when the mission's done and you're still standing. But part of you never comes home. 6 weeks passed before I saw her again. Family court. 9 a.m. She was already seated when I entered. Hair tied back, suit too large for her frame. She didn't look up when I sat across the aisle. Her attorney was whispering something, but she wasn't listening. Just staring at the floor, jaw tight. The judge was efficient. Formalities first, then asset review, then custody. Caroline didn't contest anything. She didn't argue the property transfer, didn't deny the financial misconduct. When the judge asked if she wished to speak on her own behalf, she just shook her head. I watched her sign the settlement, saw her hand tremble just once. Leo wasn't there. I didn't want him involved in the legal side. He knew enough. He had questions, yes, but fewer than I'd expected. His focus was on his own life, school, friends, the parts of him untouched by our wreckage. Outside the courthouse, Caroline approached me. Her voice was different. No pretense, no manipulation, just weariness. I didn't plan all of it, she said. I didn't respond. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I nodded once. Not in agreement, just acknowledgement. She looked down. Is he going to hate me? No, I said. But he's going to remember. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I turned and walked away. 2 days later, a letter arrived. Handwritten. No return address. Just for Mark on the envelope. Inside one page. I lied. I betrayed you. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I'm grateful you protected him anyway. No signature. I burned it in the sink. Not out of anger. Out of finality. That night, Leo and I watched an old war movie together. He asked questions about ranks, tactics, the sound design of explosions. I answered them all. When the credits rolled, he turned to me. Do you miss her? I thought about that for a long moment. Some parts of her, I said, but not the person who left. He nodded, leaned back, said nothing more. I looked at him, this boy who wasn't my blood, but mine in every way that counted. And I realized I hadn't just survived a betrayal. I'd preserved something worth saving. Not Caroline, not the marriage, but the part of me that didn't need to become what she thought I would. Bitter, broken, vengeful. I chose silence, control, precision, and Leo. Always Leo.